Good morning, everybody. My name is Jessica Scholz, and this upcoming cycle will be my 15th working with CASPA. So I'm very familiar with you guys, with the PA applicant process, and I also understand how stressful this can be for everybody. There's a lot to keep track of and a lot of information. So I want to share with you some of the common ways applicants sometimes trip themselves up with this process to make sure you guys all avoid those mistakes and have as smooth of an application process as possible. Sound good? All right, let's get started. So, the best way to avoid unnecessary mistakes is to prepare for the process before you apply as much as possible. The more preparation you do, the fewer surprises you're going to have down the road. And we all know this kind of surprises usually can be stressful. So, how can you best do that? One of the things you want to do is research the CASPA process ahead of time. The best way to start is to read through the CASPA Applicant Help Center. It's publicly available. You don't have to have an account to access it. It's searchable. So if you have a particular topic you have questions about, you can type it into the search screen and read up on it. Almost everything you need to know is in there. And I know it's a lot, but it also can help you avoid some mistakes. So it's good to do some research in there before you start. You also want to make sure you understand the requirements to complete the application and the processes used to do so. That's both on CASPA and with the schools, because each individual program can have some of their own requirements. Attending virtual fairs or webinars like this one can be super helpful. And also ask a lot of questions, preferably from CASPA staff. I know there's a lot of information online out there. Some of it's good, some of it's not good. It's hard to tell sometimes what is accurate. Something that might have been accurate 2 or 3 years ago when someone else applied might be different now. So in general, it's best to come straight to CASPA for questions. I'll put our contact information at the end of this presentation, but even if you don't have an application yet, you can still call and ask general questions about how things work. That's accessible to you, or email or chat, and those representatives can help answer some of your questions you might have. I'll also be on the chat for the rest of the day today if you have some general questions. The other thing you want to do is make sure you research the programs you're applying to. Again, that's something else you can do on this fair. I know there's other programs here today. You want to understand both their minimum requirements, but also the average stats of people who get accepted or people who are competitive applicants. That's something you can ask. So maybe they have a minimum GPA, but the average applicant that gets accepted has a higher one than that. Maybe they have a minimum patient care hour requirement, but the average person that gets accepted has a different number of hours. Some programs even publish this on their website, so it's something to keep in mind. You also want to know application requirements regarding deadlines and also what that deadline means. We'll talk a little bit about that later on in the presentation. Do they require GRE scores or other tests? Maybe they require the English as a second language test if you got your degree in another country, for example. What is their prerequisite coursework completion? Not only just which courses, but how many classes do they allow you to still have in progress? Or do they want them all to be completed before you apply? That can vary between the schools. You want to know what the identity of the letter of reference writer should be. Again, a lot of schools want very specific people. They might say, I want a PA and somebody that you shadowed. And they'll have some very specific requirements. So you want to make sure you know what those are before you request your letters. You want to be aware of supplemental fees. Some schools charge fees in addition to the CASPA fees, some don't. So you want to be aware of what those are. And other schools require supplemental materials. So while you might have turned everything into CASPA that you needed for us, there might be other items that your schools want. So you want to be aware of those as well. If you are a reapplicant, we have a lot of people who reapply to CASPA. It's advisable still to review the Help Center to understand, one, what you can carry forward from a past cycle and what you have to do over. But also, things have changed sometimes since the last cycle. So you might want to take a look at what might be different this year than when you applied the previous or maybe even 2 or 3 cycles ago. You also want to be prepared to answer school questions surrounding how you've improved your application since your previous attempt at applying. A lot of schools are going to ask that if you're a reapplicant right on the CASPA application. And if they don't, if you reach the interview stage, they're also very likely to ask it there. So you just want to have an answer prepared to that. The other thing you want to keep in mind is if you applied in a previous cycle, even if you never submitted the application, if you started an application in the prior cycle or even 2 cycles ago, you want to, when you reach the CASPA home screen, instead of creating a new account, you want to click reapplying to CASPA and create a reapplicant account to pull that information forward so you don't have to start completely from scratch. The second best way to avoid some mistakes is to put time on your side, right? The more time you give yourself to complete the application and allow for it to be processed, the less stressful things are going to be because you won't find yourself scrambling at the last minute to meet a deadline. That's the last thing you want to do. So let's talk about how kind of the application timeline works. So for the 22-23 application cycle, that opens on April 28th, so coming up soon, and it is open until April 1st, 2023. The thing to understand is the cycle is the date range the application is open, not when you would attend the program. Some people get confused about that. And the deadlines for the program, depending on the school, fall at all different times within that cycle range, right? The start dates for each program also vary, so you need to research that with the program. And there also, I want to say there is such a thing as submitting too early, right? So the application opens April 28th. You do not need to submit your application on April 28th. There's actually a lot of good reasons not to do that. One, you want to make sure that you have everything in and all your ducks in a row. Once you submit, there's very little things you can fix if you found out you made a mistake because you rushed through it. We don't even begin processing transcripts for the first week of the application. So trying to get everything in that first day is not going to push you to the head of the line. It's really unnecessary. And the thing is that you might have, once you submit, we're going to start verifying your application once your transcripts are in. And sometimes that means we might verify you before your spring grades come in. If you're still taking your last semester of courses, that maybe the final grades don't come out till May or so, and that your school wants to see those. And so you might end up with a bunch of things in progress that you didn't intend, and we can't undo that once you do that. So there is such a thing as too early. In general, applying anytime in May is considered very early. There are some programs, they're not very many, they're the minority that might have a deadline. I think there's like one in June, maybe two in July. The rest of the programs are all like August, September, October, and later. So usually anytime in the summer, June, July, the J's, there's that common phrase, submit in the J's, is usually considered perfectly normal and on track. You only start getting a little bit late and a little bit, things get a little bit crazy when we get towards August 1. Okay. Application processing times. Transcripts can take up to, this is maximum, 10 to 14 days to be posted to your application after they are released by the school. Now, I say that because depending on how your school does the transcript process, we don't know what their processes are. Some of them release them in batches, especially around graduation or finals. Sometimes they hold transcripts. Sometimes they do them right away. Sometimes you might see them in 2 days if you ordered them electronically. It's kind of hard to tell, but this is a general turnaround time that if it's been 10 days and your school confirms it was sent 10 days ago, it's time to start looking for that transcript and maybe contacting CASPA customer service. Don't let it wait longer than that. Professional transcript entry service, which is an optional service to enter your coursework for you into your application. We'll talk a little bit more about that downstream, but that takes 10 business days after all your transcripts get here and you've submitted to at least one program. So if you are up against a deadline, it may be worth it to enter your courses yourself because this can delay your application submission. Verification can take up to 4 weeks maximum after your application is complete, which means all your transcripts are here, at least 2 references are on your application. If you ordered PTE, it's been completed and approved and you've submitted to one school. But 4 weeks is a maximum that also really allows for mistakes that the verification team might have found and sent back to you to correct. The average turnaround time is a lot faster. Sometimes it's only a day or 2. I would say in our busiest time, sometimes it can be a week and a half. But you don't want to assume that you can submit your application 2 days before the deadline and it's going to get verified in time. You should give yourself that turnaround time because what if they find a problem? What if they need another transcript that you weren't expecting? So give yourself the maximum amount of time so you don't have to stress out about it. PAPEs, all programs also have their own timelines. So a lot of programs do have rolling admissions and they review applications prior to their deadline as they come in. So that's why people are concerned about getting things in early. But as I mentioned, spring is still very early. Each program has its own requirements about what it wants complete by its deadline and what it will require to review your submission, right? So some programs might only want you to turn in the CASPA application by their deadline. Others want it completely verified with all your transcripts there and your GRE scores and everything else. Some programs are going to say, we need all of your prereqs done before we'll look at it. Others won't. So you want to make sure you check with your program about what they're looking for. And schools set their own timelines regarding when they notify you, when they conduct their interviews, when they make their admissions decisions. That's something you want to ask them so you have a general sense of what that timeline looks like and when you should expect to hear from them. Because if you ask them up front before you apply when you expect to hear anything and then you don't, then you'll have a general sense of when you should follow up with the program, or, so you're not letting it sit with them either. So filling out the application, you've done your research, you understand the timeline. Now you're going to sit down and actually fill this out. After April 28th, you've made your account and you're going to fill the application out. In general, filling it out is very straightforward, right? But there are specific areas that applicants can get tripped up that I want you to pay some special attention to. So I'm going to point them out. One is personal information. In general, personal information is obviously very straightforward. It's just about you. But there is one slot that sometimes people forget to fill out. And it is a slot that says, do you have any other alternate name? And you want to make sure that if any of your documentation, any transcript, if you're applying for a fee waiver, any potential tax form, anything that has a different name than the one you've put on your application, you want to document it here. That could be a maiden name if you've gotten married. That could be, some people use their middle name as their first name. Maybe one of your schools misspelled your name somewhere, or if it's misspelled on the GREs, that does happen. You might want to put the alternate spelling. Some people have a westernized name they use. They want to make sure you put that. So if you have anything coming under another name, you want to put it there. Now, note that doesn't necessarily mean that that automatically gets taken care of. So if you have a transcript coming in under a name that doesn't match your application, and you see that transcript's not showing up within the time frame you would expect, you definitely want to call customer service and point out the fact that you might have something under a different name that they can search for you. So filling out this field does not automatically take care of that, but it can avoid a lot of problems when, again, sometimes when we're reviewing documents, the first thing we'll check is the alternate name. And, if it's there, then we know who you are. So definitely self-identify alternate names when you're filling out this section. Colleges attended. It's very, very important you list every school that awarded you college credit. So if you had dual enrollment in high school, that often was done through some kind of local school or local community college. You want to list that you attended that community college, even if you never set foot in the door there. I always use the example that when I was in high school, I took an art class that gave me credit at Boston College of Art. I've never been to Boston College of Art. I don't even know where they're located. I don't think they exist anymore. I never saw a teacher from there, but if I were to apply to CASPA, I would need a transcript from Boston College of Art, and I would have to list it on my application. Don't list, there are some things you shouldn't list. Do not list a hospital or work completed during military service. Now, I want to be very specific here. A military school that's accredited, like Community College of the Air Force or West Point, that would be something you would list. That's an accredited school, right? But if you just have a joint services transcript, or maybe ACE credit, or a Sailor Marine transcript from the military, that you would not list as an institution attended. Some of the schools do ask for military paperwork in their school specific section, and you could upload your transcript there, but we would not normally collect that on CASPA. Hospitals, same thing. So if, let's say, sometimes a radiology program is taken directly through a hospital, you have a hospital transcript that's different than a school transcript, that we would not accept. So you would not list that there. Similarly, in the program specific section, many schools ask for clinical professional documents, and you could upload a hospital transcript there if you so choose. You also want to make sure you know if your school is on a semester or quarter or trimester system. Semester or trimester kind of numerically is the same thing, so that's not as important, but semester or quarter is important. You are going to be asked which one it is on. It does not mean how many terms you were in, it's the value of credit on your transcript. So if you flip your transcript over on the back, they will usually define what your credit means, and it will say it's on semester hours or quarter hours, and that's what you want to pick on your CASPA application, because whichever one it is affects how your GPA is calculated. So you want to make sure you enter that correctly. If you studied abroad, definitely review our help center before you try to report it, because depending on how you study abroad, it gets reported differently. So read through that, try to determine if you've studied abroad. If you still don't know, definitely contact our customer service team. Ideally, if you have to call customer service, it helps them help you if we already have a copy of your undergraduate transcript, because a lot of times if you don't really understand how you studied abroad, the clues for how you studied abroad are on your undergraduate transcript that the customer service team can look at with you if we already have a copy of it. So that's something to keep in mind when you contact us about study abroad. Coursework. So you are asked to enter your courses exactly as they appear in your transcript into your CASPA application so that we can standardize your GPA calculation, right? All of the courses on different transcripts are, again, some are semester credit, some are quarter credit, some are unit credit, some, an A is worth this amount of points, an A minus over here is worth a different amount of points. So we put everything into our system so that you have a standardized GPA. You want to make sure you list any transfer credit under the school that originally awarded the credit, right? So again, as I mentioned, if you went to a community college and they transferred credit to your undergraduate institution, you want to make sure you list any credits from the community college under the community college itself as they appear on the community college's transcript, which might look different than how they transferred to your undergrad institution. And then you would not list them again under your undergrad, even though they might show up there as transfer credit on your transcript. You always put it only under the original school. You also want to make sure you do the appropriate credit conversions if your school is on a unit system. Now, until I worked at CASPA, I didn't even know my undergraduate was on a unit system. A unit system is if you look at your transcript and you flip over the back and see if it's on a semester or quarter system, it will say, usually the giveaway is that every course is 1 or less, right? So instead of saying like your biology course was 4 credits or 5 credits, it might say 1 credit or 1.5, or maybe for a gym class it's 0.5. If everything is 1, now that's not saying a random class is 1. Random classes often are 1. A lab might be 1 credit, a gym class might be 1 credit. But if everything on your transcript is 1 credit, that's usually a sure sign that you're on a unit system. So you want to flip that transcript over and it will say something like 1 unit is equal to 4 semester hours or 6 quarter hours or something like that. If it says that, you actually have to make a conversion when you're entering in your courses. If you put 1 for everything, well, 1, you'll probably get your application sent back to you to fix it, but it also could screw up your GPA calculation. So if it says 1 unit equals 4 semester hours, you would label the term type as semester. And instead of putting the 1 that shows up on your transcript, you would put the 4. If it says 0.5, you would put 2. So you would do that numeric conversion when you enter your grades. If you're not sure and you have a copy of your transcript and you're looking at it, you can always contact customer service and they can look at it with you. AP credit, this is important. It cannot be itemized unless it's also itemized on the transcript of the college that awarded it. So when you're listing AP credit on your application, you would list it under the undergraduate institution that awarded it. We don't accept AP test transcripts. The test score itself is not worth anything unless a college gave you credit for your score. So if a college gave you, let's say it says in your transcript, you get 15 credits of AP, and it doesn't say which AP, whether that was English or science or whatever, you can't delineate that yourself because we have no way of verifying of if you're right or not. So you would just have to say AP credits, 15, and your grade would be usually is CR for credit. If it does delineate, if it says, hey, you got 3 AP credits for English and 3 for biology and whatever, then you can list it. But if it doesn't, you'd have to list it as a lump of credit. Letters of reference. So letters of reference, you are required to request 3 letters in order to submit your application. So you have to have at least 3 people listed. You have to have at least 2 of them finish it, I mean, submit the actual letters in order to become complete and verified, right? But you can list up to 5 people in there. The question is, should you? Um, what I would advise is that the reason there are 5 slots is because some programs, as we mentioned, have very specific requirements as to who they want those references to be. And some of those programs have conflicting requirements as to who they want those references to be. So let's say one school might want a PA and somebody you shadowed and your clinical supervisor, and another school will want a PA and your biology professor and somebody from a leadership role or something. And so obviously with if you only had 3 slots, you could not fulfill both of their requirements. So what you want to make sure you do is you don't want to give the schools letters they didn't ask for, right? You want to use those slots to make sure you have fulfilled all of your program's requirements, and the programs are going to pick the letters they want to read. They're typically not going to read letters they didn't ask for. And if you use up all 5 slots and then find out you want to apply to another school that has conflicting requirements, now you're out of slots. So you only need to use the ones you need. For the personal essay section, this is a text box. It's only 5,000 characters. And what we advise, some people will type their essay right in there. If you type it in there, it does count down the characters for you, so you know how many you have left. But a lot of people tend to compose their essay somewhere else, like in a Word document or a text file, and then copy and paste it into there. That can cause some formatting problems. So what you want to do is if you do copy paste your essay into the essay section, save it, but then leave the section, maybe even sign out of your application, come back, log back in, and then look at it again. Because sometimes if there's and then proofread it, because if there's any weird things that end up in there, like maybe a comma turns into a question mark because it couldn't understand the formatting of maybe the font you used in Word or whatever, it will show up sometimes after you've saved it, left, and come back to that section. So make sure that once you go in there, you come back to proofread it to make sure that you like it. Because once you submit your application, that's locked. You can't fix it. We can't fix it for you. If you call us, we're locked out of it too. So just make sure you proofread that really well before you submit your application. Experiences section. Oops, I'm sorry. Experiences section. When you enter your experiences, your patient care hours, all this good stuff, you want to make sure you only enter the hours that are completed at the time you submit the application. When you submit the application, even if you're going to apply to other schools later, you can't go back in and edit the number of hours. So let's say you've completed 20 hours as an EMT and you want to update that to 50 hours later, you can't go back in and edit that once you've submitted to a program. So you want to make sure you don't put anticipated hours. You put the 20 that you finished. And then in the duty section where it asks about kind of describe your job, you can also describe your projected time commitment. And you can also mark that the experience is ongoing, like it's current and you're still doing it. But you can't claim hours that you haven't yet done. You can, after you submit, go back and add a brand new experience, but you can't add hours onto an experience that's already there. Prerequisite matching. Some programs ask you in their program specific section to match one of the courses that you entered to their prerequisites. So maybe they have an anatomy and physiology prereq, and they'll say, which course from your coursework section do you want to match to this? Some applicants make the mistake of matching every single biology class they have, right? Or it says, oh, I want a psychology class, I'm going to list all of them. That's not really what the programs are looking for. They want you to meet the requirements they're asking for, not exceed the requirements they're asking for. And that actually can, you know, get them in a foul mood because they're trying to calculate a prerequisite GPA for you. And now all that you've done is replicated your CASPA GPA because you've added all your courses back in here. So only add the ones they're looking for. You can match multiple courses to one prerequisite. It might be necessary, especially if your lab is a separate course than your lecture. So you'd have to add both of those. That's fine. Just don't go crazy. Okay. Next up, understanding the process timelines for CASPA are also important to consider when you're kind of devising your plan, as you should be right now, for completing your application. So let's take a look at some of these and what they mean. The first one I want to point out, because you do this pretty early in the process, is applying for fee waivers. So CASPA offers financial-based fee waivers, meaning that if you meet a certain level of adjusted gross income based upon your size of family on your federal tax form, you may qualify for a CASPA waiver. This is on our instructions on our help center. Please note that if you look now, the numbers are for the tax year 2020, and for the new cycle, it's going to be for the tax year 2021. So those will change slightly before the cycle opens. So you might want to go back and check those. If you're looking at it now, you're going to want to go back and check those out. We will be going off of the 2021 tax year when we open on April 28th, not the 2020 year. But if you do believe you qualify for a fee waiver, you do have to apply for one before you submit to any of your programs. Once you've submitted and paid for a program, you no longer you can't retroactively apply for a fee waiver. Okay, so it's something you have to do up front. Please note, though, that you want to make sure your documentation is correct. So we only take the 1040s, the federal 1040s. I don't know how many of you do your own taxes. If you do, this will be very clear. If you don't, you might want to double check with who does do your taxes. But if you're claimed as a dependent on anyone else's form, that might be a parent or guardian or someone else, you need to submit their form, not yours, even if you also filed your own taxes. If you're not claimed as a dependent by anybody, you can submit your own form. That's a very common mistake. Other people get confused as to what a 1040 is. I see people submit their W-2 forms from work. We can't take those. We definitely need a federal 1040. Some people send their state. We don't want the state. We want the federal one. Okay. Once you submit that request, your application is blocked from being submitted while we are reviewing those waiver requests. It can take up to 10 business days. A lot of times it's a lot faster than that, but when the cycle first opens, we get slammed with requests, so it can take the full 10 business days, and sometimes in May, maybe even slightly longer. There's no deadlines in that time frame, so it shouldn't really affect you, but just keep that in mind. So you don't want to request a waiver the day before your deadline, for example. That's a surefire way to get yourself in trouble. Note that if you do make a mistake and request a waiver and you don't want to be blocked anymore, you can unrequest the waiver and submit if you want. You would just go back to the same section where you requested it, and you can choose to retract your request. So you're able to do that yourself if you need to. Once, let's say you submit your form, your waiver is awarded. Once it's awarded, you have 14 days. It's not business days, it's just full-on days to submit your application before that waiver is revoked. Okay, so you don't want to apply for the fee waiver too early. This is, again, one of those things where sometimes people apply too early for something. A lot of times people start their application April 28th and everybody applies for fee waiver right away. And then let's say you get it, but you're not ready to turn in your application, and then the fee waiver expires. And if it expires, there's no way to reapply for it. You lose it, and that money is given to somebody else. So you only really get one shot to apply for the waiver. So make sure that you're ready to submit and then apply for the waiver, or that you're shortly going to be ready to submit, so that you don't run out of time trying to tweak your personal essay and then lose your waiver. Okay. Waivers are a little bit different this year. In the past, waivers only covered the first program you applied to, so you had to have one program ready to go. This year, waivers are going to cover the first 2 programs that you apply to, but there's a few caveats about making that work, right? So in order to claim the full waiver, you have to have 2 programs ready to submit before you redeem the waiver within that 14 days. And you have to click the Submit All button and apply to both of those programs at the same time. You can't individually apply to one and then put the other in your shopping cart. You have to apply to both. If you only apply to one, you'll still get one school fee waived, but you forfeit the other school's waiver. And there's no way for us to get that back for you. So you just want to be very careful when you're ready to redeem the waiver to make sure you're able to use the maximum amount that you've been awarded. Our instructions will be updated. Right now, the instructions are still for last cycle. Before we launch on the April 28th, it will be updated to show all that stuff. And your notification you get when you receive the waiver will say all that again. But I just want to upfront warn you that if you get a waiver and you want to use it for 2 programs, there's going to be certain steps that you have to follow to do that. So you want to make sure you're prepared. Sending transcripts to CASPA, which everybody must do. All right, before you send us anything, you need to have your account started. So don't send us anything prior to April 28th. We have nowhere to put it. We have to assume that it is for the old cycle and it's not going to be saved. So it's going to go to the old cycle and kind of be discarded. So don't send us anything until you've started your account on the 28th and your schools are listed. So when they come to us, we know where we're supposed to put them. It also is important because when you list your schools on your application, that generates the barcode that you need on that transcript request form in order to properly request your transcripts. So depending on how you request your transcripts, you might request them directly from the school, in which case they might want a photocopy of that form or a PDF of that form that you email them, or they might just want the barcode number. If you request them electronically, a lot of the vendors like I don't know why I can't think of vendor names right now, but the electronic vendors are going to ask for the barcode on your form. So you want to make sure that you have it ready. The barcode is different every cycle. So the ones from last year don't work. And the barcode is different for every school you list. So don't just copy and paste one school for all of the ones that you request. It is specific. So you want to keep in mind, you want to generate those before you request your transcripts. You also want to make sure you give adequate information to your school. So they send us the right one. We have gotten the wrong transcripts for people before that have the same name, but a different birthday. We've gotten ones that the name might be slightly different. We've gotten letters from schools saying we can't fulfill this transcript request because they didn't give us any information. So you don't want that to be you. Make sure that you're following whatever process your school wants to request that transcript, that you follow that to make sure that they send it out properly. That cover sheet I mentioned, if it can't be sent with the transcript to identify it, sometimes especially if you're ordering them online, what we advise you do is include your CASPA ID number in the address. So there's what it tells you, type in the CASPA mailing address, which is right on that form. So if you're typing, Mary Smith, you can, and the next line is CASPA, you can say CASPA ID number 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and then the mailing address. And the reason that is helpful is because that whole address gets printed right on the transcript. So if your transcript gets separated from that other piece of paper, if nobody else knows where it is, if it gets sent to then whenever that transcript gets opened in our mailroom, we know who it belongs to and what service it belongs to because it says CASPA and your ID number right on it. It also can be helpful if your name is different, because even if your name is different, we have your ID number. Understand the turnaround times for schools to send transcripts after requesting them. Again, as I mentioned, sometimes requesting transcripts around graduation or around finals. A registrar's office tends to hold things. Also keep in mind, sometimes if you're sending them around a school break, especially around winter break, or even, you can obviously request them over the summer, but there might be like a certain week the staff takes off or something like that. You want to be aware of kind of what that turnaround time is when you're requesting the transcripts, so you don't get delayed on the school side. And also make sure you clear up any financial or other holds with schools before you start your application. So if a school refuses to send a transcript because you owe them like a parking ticket money or anything like that, there's no exception that we can make. We can't say, oh, that's okay, we don't need your transcript. We need your transcript. And if the school's not going to send it and they won't budge, then you might have gotten halfway through your application and then hit a roadblock. So you want to make sure that you're on good standing with your school to request transcripts before you even start your application. And if you're not, figure out whether it's a payment plan or whatever it is to make sure that you're able to access your transcripts before you get too far down into the process. Professional transcript entry. Again, I want to say this is an optional service, which applicants some choose to do, to have somebody at CASPA type in their classes for them because they feel like they can't do it or they don't want to do it or for whatever reason. But you don't have to do it. Everybody's perfectly capable of doing it themselves. It's not faster, right? But it's something that some people just prefer to do. If you order this, keep in mind a couple of things. Paying for PTE does not mean CASPA is going to request your transcripts for you. It does not avoid you having to request your transcript. Some people get caught up in that misconception and then they get very significantly delayed because they never send their transcripts. So if you pay for PTE, you still have to go through the whole transcript request process and get your official transcript sent to CASPA. The only thing that that PTE service pays for is someone data entering the things off those transcripts into your application for you, which you would normally do yourself. That's the only thing they do. And it doesn't start until not only all your transcripts arrive at CASPA, but you have to actually submit to a program in addition to paying for PTE. So until you submit, that process doesn't start. So some people get caught in the feedback loop of they're waiting for their PTE to get done before they submit, but we're waiting for you to submit in order to start your PTE, so that you don't want to get stuck in that feedback loop. You have to submit to a program. And the other thing is you don't move on to verification until your PTE has been reviewed and approved. So once your PTE is done, once they do that data entry for you, you're going to receive an email that basically says, we've finished the work, we need you to approve the work. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, we want you to look over and make sure that there isn't any discrepancy. And if there is, you want to communicate that to our customer service team so we can clear it up. And the other is because if your individual programs you're applying to, a lot of them have prerequisite matching they want you to do, and you're not able to do that when you have no courses in there. So you're going to have to do those prerequisite matching before we can move on. So we have to have you take another step and then actually approve the work before you'll become complete. Okay, so don't get stuck in that feedback loop either. Finally, PTE also does not make you avoid verification. You're still going to get verified, and they can still find mistakes during verification. For example, if you do PTE and they're just going to data entry what's on the transcript. If they see that there's a school you attended that you didn't report, that's not going to get caught by PTE. They're still going to have that happen during verification. So it doesn't avoid the verification process. Verification, just to clear some things up, some people get confused. They think that when a transcript shows up and it's posted, it's been verified or something. Individual transcripts are not verified. Yes, we make sure they're official before we post them, but we don't verify them. It's your coursework that gets verified. What verification means is that we compare what is entered into your application to your transcript and make sure it's right. Like you didn't give yourself all A's when maybe you got a variety of grades or something like that. That's all it is basically verifying that your coursework accurately reflects your transcript. That's all that does. And then at the end, the system automatically calculates you a GPA based upon a human verifying that you have entered the information in correctly. Finally, filling out your application and submitting it is really only the first step of the process. I'd say this can really trip up applicants the most is if they fill out the CASPA, they submit it, and then they kind of wipe their hands. They say, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to go to school now. That's only really part one. So it's your responsibility, even after you fill out the application and submit it, to kind of shepherd your application's journey through this process, through CASPA, until it gets to the school, and then even at the school level, until you get confirmation from the school that they've received and are reviewing your application. So submitting it and forgetting it, right, I don't know how to call it, is kind of one of the biggest mistakes you could make. So how do you stay on top of your application after you have submitted it? Well, the first thing you can do is on CASPA, there is a check status tab, and it shows your application status, and you want to make sure that you are on top of what these statuses are. So let's talk about what they even mean. The first status is in progress, and it will show up on each of your schools. In progress means that you have put a school on your application and you're filling the application out. That's all it means. Maybe at this point you should be ordering your transcripts, you should be requesting your LORs, your test scores, and you haven't submitted to any program, right? That said, programs can see you've listed them on your application. Sometimes applicants freak out. They get an email from the program, thanks for your interest in applying. And you're like, I haven't applied anywhere yet. And that's because they can see that they can't see your application, they can't see your stuff, but they can see that you have listed them. And so some of them will use that to contact you and maybe invite you to open houses or things like that. So if you get notifications from schools, that's why don't freak out. Received is the next application status, and this is equivalent to those blue application deadlines. So we have a participating programs page on our help center which will show kind of each program. It shows their deadline and it also has a color. And that color kind of gives you a general sense of what the school is looking for by their deadline. Now, it's not an end all be all. It's not going to tell you everything the school is looking for, but at least gives you a place to start. Now, if you looked today, all those deadlines would be for last cycle, but before the new cycle opens, they will be updated for the new application cycle. So a received application means you've submitted to that program, right? But we don't have all your materials yet. So we might be missing some of your transcripts or your letters of reference. So you should be monitoring your transcripts. You should monitor your LORs and kind of following up on anything that hasn't shown up yet. So maybe, one of your letter writers needs a little nudge and you have to follow up with that. Maybe your transcript, it's been, 12, 13 days and you don't see it on your CASPA application. So maybe you need to give us a call, and I would start calling your school, confirming what day it went out, and then calling us and kind of following up about where it might be. So those are the kinds of things you want to make sure your documentation gets in when you're in a receive status, because you really want to get your application to this complete status. If you don't see complete, something's missing. So it's a status you want to be concerned about and you want to be following up on. Complete is the orange deadline. That means you've submitted, but also all of your documentation to allow us to verify your application has arrived, which for CASPA means that all your transcripts are attached to your account and at least 2 of your letters of reference have been completed by your evaluator, right? And if you ordered PTE, not only is it done, but you've approved it. So complete is a good status, right? That doesn't mean, though, that you've met the standards for complete at an individual program. So you can become complete at CASPA with no GRE scores received because we don't track those and not all programs want them. We can't hold your application waiting for a GRE score for a school that doesn't even care about it, right? So you want to also make sure, in addition to being complete, which is a good status at CASPA, that means you're in line to have your GPA calculated, that you're also kind of following up at the program level and being like, okay, do I have everything I need for school A, B, and C as well? Do they consider me complete? Not just CASPA. Then finally, we have verified, which is the green application deadline. So if you have a school that wants to be verified by the deadline, you want to make sure you get everything in at least 4 weeks ahead of that deadline, if not sooner, because that means that not only do we have all your stuff, but we have verified your application and calculated your GPA. Verified is the final status you'll have at CASPA. It's never going to update after that. So once it's verified, your schools have access to everything we are going to give them. And what happens to you at each individual school after that is up to the school. The school decisions don't flow back into your CASPA application. So you won't see on your CASPA application, whether you've been selected for an interview or whether you've been denied or whether you've been made an offer or any of that. That will all come from the schools, but that's not something you see on your CASPA application. So once it's verified, then you want to start following up with your schools individually. There is a couple other statuses you want to take note of. The biggest one is undelivered. So what is undelivered? If you see that, that is a red flag. And that means your application has been sent back to you by one of our verifiers because there's errors to the coursework section, right? So that means they need you to do something. You need to fix something and resubmit the application. You'll get charged again, but you have to press a button to resubmit it, to send it back to verification so they can review it again with the changes that you've submitted. The email that you will get an email, it also ends up in the messages section of your application. I would not rely solely on your email inbox. You want to be checking your CASPA application, the messages box, because if something gets bounced out or into your junk email, it's still going to show up on your CASPA application under messages. So that's a safe place to make sure that you have everything, all of the notifications. And it will tell you exactly what the issue is. And if you have any questions about it, contact customer service right away. But if you don't know what you need to do and you want to fix that right away and resubmit it, and then you should see your application move back into a complete status, and then it will be reviewed again until it gets to verified. So that's definitely a status you want to take note of and take action on right away. So finally, let's wrap this up. It's a lot of talking. You have a lot of control over, avoiding some of these mistakes, but it all depends on how well you prepare, right? So, and how well you kind of are proactive about monitoring your application. So, as we mentioned, do your homework, know what your schools require and when they want it, and what documentation you need for CASPA versus what documentation you need for them. Read through our help center, understand the process before you start it so you can avoid surprises. Make yourself a little roadmap for how you want your application life to go so that you're ahead of schedule for everything, because there are possible things that are going to go wrong. But if you plan for them and leave time for those things to happen, they can get resolved before they become a problem and before they get to become a stressor. Understand your timelines, plan ahead, allow extra time for transcripts, extra time for references. You don't want to be chasing down a reference the day before your deadline. They don't always do things when they say they're going to do them. Your transcripts don't always show up when you plan. Maybe somebody misspelled your name and you didn't know they had a misspelling. Yourself test scores. Give yourself extra time for everything. That way, if you do have to follow up and chase something down, you have plenty of time to get it straightened out. Submission, when you're submitting for all programs, the deadline to submit cuts off at 11:59 p.m. Eastern on the deadline date. So if you're in a time zone that's not Eastern, you can't submit at midnight in California and it will go through. It's too late already. It's been too late for several hours. So you need to keep that Eastern time zone in mind. That said, don't wait to the last literal minute to submit, because when you click the submit button, that's not when your submission goes through. When you click the submit button, you're going to go to a shopping cart and you're going to have to enter credit card information. You're going to have to do all of this fun stuff, and that submission doesn't go through till you're done. So if you submit at 11:58 and then by the time you type in your credit card info, it's 12:01, well, it's not going to go through. So make sure you don't leave it till the actual last minute. If you do miss a deadline, like you haven't submitted on time, right? You have, a hurricane comes in, you've lost power. No matter what happens, CASPA can't give you a deadline extension. Only the program can give you a deadline extension. We can't give you permission to submit to a program after the date they have given us without their say. So you have to go to the program and ask for a deadline extension. And if you were to grant it, the program would contact CASPA directly, right? But plan ahead so you don't have to request one. Don't wait till the last day, the last week, the last hour, okay? Understand how long it takes to receive transcripts, to process PT, to verify an application, and factor in extra time in case something goes wrong. Because if it doesn't, then you're ahead of the game. And if it does, you can sort it out before it's too late. Plan to turn everything in at least 4 weeks ahead of the deadline just to avoid headaches. And again, submitting your CASPA application and paying the fee is step one. You're still responsible for shepherding the rest of your application. That fee does not absolve you from that responsibility. The only one that's really looking out for your application is you. So you want to make sure you take ownership of it. And don't hesitate to follow up on your application to ensure everything's been processed, received by your programs. If you're not sure, ask. We would much prefer you ask than to wait until it's too late. And then you're calling you're upset because you don't know what happened and it's too late to fix anything. Always follow up. So how can you reach us? CASPA applicant support, we're available on the phone Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. Phone number is here. It's also on the Help Center. You can just type in contact right into the Help Center and all this information will come up. This is the email. And then we also have live chat. So you can also chat with a representative right on there. And again, you don't need to have a CASPA account to contact applicant support and ask questions. So if you haven't started an application yet, I know you can't till April 28th, but you have questions, you can still reach out. And I'll be on again this fair for the rest of the day. Thank you, everybody.